This is a moment in Jewish history. Have you ever played Rummikub? I have, especially on Shabbat. In fact, I have it in front of me right now. But when I tell people it's an Israeli game, most are surprised. In fact, this month, the annual World Rummikub Championships were held in Poland. The top 4 finalists were Mate Lechner from Hungary, Chung Ying Wu from Taiwan, Yevgeny Shapiro from Israel, and Marc Tasset from France. And I thought it was just a simple game my family played on Shabbat. The first World Rummikub Championships were held in the 1990s in Jerusalem, but the game dates back to the 1940s in Romania, with a Jewish Romanian man named Ephraim Hertzano. According to the official Rummikub website, card games were banned by the communist authorities, so Hertzano created a game using numbered tiles. After World War I, he moved to Israel, where he developed Rummikub in his small apartment in Bat Yam. It became a hit, and in 1977 was released in the United States. According to newspaper articles, it was mentioned on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson by comedian Don Rickles when he first discovered it during a trip to Israel. A Jerusalem Post article from the 1970s states that actress Elizabeth Taylor and TV star Telly Savalas were early fans too. The next year, Hertzano published the official Rummikub book in English. Here's an excerpt. In Israel, where the game originated in the early 1950s, people most often played on balconies. They say that on a summer night in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, the noise of the clacking of the tiles on the balconies overhead is deafening. The book goes on to explain the official rules for different versions: the American version, the Sabra version, and the international version. So that should clear up some confusion on various ways to play that can cause arguments. But what it does not explain is whether or not it's pronounced Rummikub or Rummikub. Today, the company is still run in Israel by Hertzano's daughter and son, Marina and Micha. It is said to rank third best-selling family game in the world, behind Monopoly and Scrabble. And speaking of Monopoly, I took to Facebook to ask my fans what their favorite Jewish and/or Israeli board game was. There is Hebrew Scrabble and Hebrew Monopoly, which uses Israeli shekels and familiar landmarks you can buy, like Dizengoff Center in Tel Aviv. In one version from the 1970s, you can rent Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem for 24 Israeli lira. One person mentioned Mitzvah Monopoly, another said Malchei Yisrael, Kings of Israel, and another said Aliyah, a board game in which players must answer Jewish trivia questions and move their pieces to Israel. I too remember playing that game growing up. It was created by a Jewish Sunday school teacher in the United States named Sallie Abelson in 1978. For the next 20 years, she sold over 10,000 copies of Aliyah, which all started from her home in Iowa. It's not the only game in which the goal is to go to Israel. Another one is not exactly a Jewish game. It's from Nazi Germany. Juden Raus, or Jews Out, was created in 1936, and the objective is to round up all the Jews and send them to Palestine. As the words on the board read, Auf nach Palästina. The promotional material states that it's, quote, an up-to-date and jolly party game for grown-ups and children. If you manage to send off 6 Jews, you've won a clear victory. Juden Raus was created by Nazi supporters, but not actually by the Nazi Party. The SS criticized it for not having the swastika symbol, and because they took what they called the Jewish question to be very serious and not something to be trivialized by a children's game. It was a Holocaust survivor who created the classic children's game Guess Who? You know, the game where you say, does your person wear glasses? Does your person have a mustache? It was created by the husband and wife team of Theo and Ora Coster in Israel. Theo was born in Amsterdam as Maurice Simon and survived the Holocaust because his parents sent him to live with a Christian family under a different identity. That's when he became Theo Coster. His classmate, Anne Frank, was not so lucky. The following is from Theo's book, We All Wore Stars, Memories of Anne Frank from Her Classmates. The time that I, 14-year-old Maurice, spent playing with my classmates, including Anne Frank, receded further in my memory with each passing year. It is now more than 65 years since the German occupation of the Netherlands, when all Jewish children in Amsterdam were forced to attend special schools. After the war, I read The Secret Annex, the Dutch title of The Diary of Anne Frank, and the hardships that my former classmate had endured made a deep impression on me. I left it all behind and went to Israel, where I soon found a job and met Ora, my future wife. There we had fantastic ideas. Our big break came in 1979 when we developed the board game called Wie is Het in Dutch. The toy manufacturer Milton Bradley produced the game in Great Britain under the name Guess Who. It met with amazing success and was launched in the United States in 1982 and has been sold in almost every country around the world. Theo and Ora's company was called Theora Design. They also created Elsie Sticks, Zingo, and the fidget toy called Pop It, also known as Go Pop. Their children Boaz and Gideon still run the company from Israel. Another Israeli game is called Taki, a card game created in Israel by Chaim Shafir and released in 1983. Today, there's a Taki app for your phone. And finally, I would like to end with a new game, of which I had the opportunity to play the prototype this year. It's called Exodus Adventure and was created by the Israeli-based Jewish educator Rabbi Pesach Stadlin, who teaches youth and helps run a Jewish summer camp. I invited Rabbi Stadlin to briefly talk about his new role-playing game, which he calls a version of Dungeons and Dreidels.
It's an honor to be a part of the great history of Jewish and Israeli game makers. I have helped to innovate the Jewish Dungeons and Dreidels game called Exodus Adventure, where players take on a character with certain abilities and skills and proficiencies. You can play as a Maccabee warrior, a prophet. You can play as a golem. We're bringing back the ancient art of Jewish storytelling. You sit around a table and the Maggid storyteller or dungeon master paints a picture of the ancient times, the biblical times. In fact, the gameplay takes place in the Midbar wilderness between Egypt and Israel, those 40 years in the wilderness. And you have to decide how your player is going to react. And when you want to cast a spell, like Vayihi Or, Let There Be Light, you have to roll the dice to see if you succeed at just about anything. And so one of the innovations of this new game is that I have constructed a 20-sided dreidel. One of the main reasons why I made this experience is so that young Jews who are interested in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings can realize that there's so much magic in our tradition, and I want to give them a reason to come back to synagogue, to come back to Hebrew school. So it's really my hope that the Hebrew schools of America will use this as an educational tool.
Since Exodus Adventure just came out this year, we will have to wait to see whether or not it's a success. Until then, I guess we'll just have to spin the dreidel and find out. This has been a moment in Jewish history. For questions or comments and past shows, you can visit benbresky.substack.com. Did I forget to include your favorite Jewish game? Send me an email at bbresky@gmail.com. Thank you to all the listeners, and Shalom.